welcome to Afternoona Delight, where Leah, Megan, and Amy, three American romance novelists discussing all things K-romance from a writer's lens. We fangirl over our favorite actors and actresses, talk up our trope addictions, and nerd out on K-drama deep dives. We'll throw in a few K-pop and K-skincare recs for good measure, because why not ride the Hallyu wave all the way to shore? So grab some tteokbokki and listen to your new favorite unease.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
So I'm excited. We have special guests tonight.
Woohoo! I'm very excited too. So I think we'll introduce our first guest, who is a listener, Allison. So Allison, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Allison. I'm in the Midwest. I'm in Nebraska. And during the pandemic, two of my best friends and I started hanging out every other Saturday just to get through pandemic times and sort of, be there for each other, have dinner, conversation. And just like January 2021, my friend is like, have you seen this show that everybody's talking about, Crash Landing on You? I was like, no, I've never seen it. So I went home and I binged it over probably 3 or 4 days. And I have not watched anything but K-drama since then. And so my other friend was like, well, if you're going down this K-drama road, you should probably listen to this podcast, Afternoona Delight. And I was like, okay. So I started listening to you guys and let you pick my K-dramas because I want to watch the K-drama and then listen to your podcast. And I just love the conversation and the K-pop recs and the book recs that you guys bring. So
oh, yay. Well, thank you. We're
excited
to have you. Your experience with Crash Landing on You is similar to ours. And yeah, I will add the reason you are a special guest tonight is because you went to the BTS concert that Leah and her daughter also attended. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. We're taking a little bit of a little detour from K-dramas to talk about K-pop and kind of like concert experiences in the fandom and things like that. So now I want to hand it over to Bronte to tell us a little bit about herself.
Hi, my name's Bronte. I'm Leah's daughter. She's my mom, and I really this is my favorite podcast. Whenever I'm bored or something, I always listen to it, and I've been waiting pretty much since it started to be on, and it's really cool. I got into K-dramas. I got into K-pop first. We were actually in the back of our van, and she was kind of just like, hey, what do you think this sounds? And she played the Stray Kids Backdoor and BTS, I think it was Black Swan, and I really loved it. And then all I would watch was just any clip I could find of K-pop, and then I just started really getting into Korea in general, and I started learning Korean and watching K-dramas, and then she told me about this podcast, and I started listening. It's
well, thank you. We know you listen, so we try to keep our language clean. Yeah, so that's why it's so exciting to have you here today, so we can kind of get more into talking about K-pop. And so thank you, Bronte, for listening to us. I know Leah appreciates it too. So I guess we just want to get right into it because we do have a lot to cover, because talking about K-pop is a lot of fun. The first question is, what's the first song that got you into K-pop?
I think that there were two songs that kind of came onto my radar at around the same time. And the first was Dynamite from BTS, which was a fun, summery vibe, song that took off in, mid 2020 when otherwise life was basically just a big bowl of suckiness. And then I think you introduced me to Backdoor by Stray Kids, which was probably the song, Bronte gave a nod to, that we got into simply because two members of Stray Kids are from Australia, which is where my husband's from, and my kids are all citizens. And so we really got into kind of Stray Kids through Backdoor, and it was really fun to have, some shared connections with my teenager, because we're always looking for ways to be cool and connect with our kids. So anyway, that was kind of like, where I got into it. So, and I knew that you were like way more into the rabbit hole than I was. So I would say I was like a dabbler.
Yeah, but I was really happy when you joined me, and I'm even happier now. So Allison, what about you?
Well, I think that I started listening to K-indie before I started listening to K-pop, because I listened to like all the like ballads and like 10 centimeters when they were on the soundtracks for the K-dramas. And then the first K-pop song that I sort of fell in love with and would listen to on repeat is So Jealous by Punch. And I don't know how I even found it. I don't remember if it's on OST. But that song I would just listen to on repeat as I was like doing notes or like at home. It was just always going. And then I watched the Carpool Karaoke with BTS. I had known who they were and just kind of was like, oh yeah, that's music. But after watching Carpool Karaoke, I've only listened to BTS, like their entire like album history.
And what about you, Bronte?
Yeah, just can't get enough of them.
The first K-pop song that I ever really got into is, I wouldn't say Backdoor, but I started listening to Backdoor and I thought, hey, this was pretty good. And then I looked into their other songs, and it was actually Astronaut that got me into them. It was one of their first songs, and it's by Stray Kids, and like I don't know, it just has a really upbeat vibe than any of their other songs. Because the other songs I'd listened to, like God's Menu, Ta, and Backdoor, they all have like a very vibe that's like edgy, and then they have Get Cool and like Awkward Silence and Astronaut. I'm like, it's just such a mood change. But Astronaut is the first song I think that really got
You know
me.
what? I haven't heard that song, so now I just wrote it down because I know what you mean. Some of Stray Kids can be, and I wouldn't even call them dark. I think edgy is the right word for it. And sometimes I like songs, that are a little bit more upbeat or have like a fun vibe. So I'll have to check that out. You know, it's funny because we always listen to Gangnam Style. Like, remember, when Gangnam Style was like everywhere? And oh my gosh, we used to like, my brother has 2 kids and I have 2 kids, and we used to play the song and have dance parties with Gangnam Style. But I think I didn't realize that was K-pop. Does that make sense? I thought it was just kind of this like viral, I didn't know that K-pop was a thing yet because I hadn't really looked into it. So I would actually say, Hello, well, I have to say a swear word. I'm sorry, Bronte, but Hello Bitches by CL is probably the first song that I was like, oh man, this is K-pop and this is amazing. I still didn't like fully get into it at the time, but that was definitely the first song that I was like, okay, I love K-pop. I'm into it. Speaking of, what got you into K-pop, what's a song that you can listen to on repeat?
So I went and like looked at my music list for this just to like be data accurate, and it appears that, so really I'm gonna just like self-disclose, I enjoy K-pop and I listen to, I would say, like, I'd probably say I'm like a light to medium K-pop listener. I am a extremely heavy now BTS listener. So I think that there's like some differentiation, and that like
That's okay.
I like K-pop as a whole, but really I just listen like 90% to BTS. And so it appears that the 2 BTS songs that I'm currently listening to the most are Fire and On, which I think was kind of magical because they were actually the first 2 songs they performed when we saw them for the Day 3 Permission to Dance concert. So that was like a really fun coincidence. But for me, I think, I know I'm not alone here in like my Sugar love, but just the fact of how he leads in with Fire with his Batolene, like in this like deep, super sulky voice. I just, honestly, I could listen to that pretty much all day. And then when On, I just can't get over the whole Jungkook hitting these like, super high notes when he gets into the whole My Everything, My Blood and Tears. And he's hitting notes that are just, we're reaching into Mariah Carey territory and nailing it. And so I like a lot of songs, but I feel like those have been on my playlist now probably like on repeat the most for probably the last 5 months.
Yeah, Allison, what about you?
Right now, what is on repeat is We Are Bulletproof on Map of Soul 7. It's just, I think that it is such an incredible song because you get just a little taste of every single one of the members. And like you just hear them and how talented they are, and they each get to bring their own personality and their own vocal styling to that song, and it just like is so incredible. So I listen to it on repeat on my way to work, and then I listen to it when I'm at work, and then I listen to it at home. I just love it so much. And really anything Suga, like I will just pull up like Suga playlist on YouTube and like just listen
I know
to
that
his
line
songs
distribution like in K-pop groups can really be a topic of discussion. So I'm like you, I like songs where like you really get a feel for like every single member, and they're all featured.
Yeah. Because you can, like, the rap line, like, they're so unique. And so you hear, like, Suga's style, you hear J-Hope's style, you hear RM's, and they're just so beautiful. And then
I feel the same way. I love it
and,
when all
like,
the members just really have their own
reason.
distinct thing. So that, yeah, as soon as their voice kicks in, you're like, yep, that's, you know. Bronte, what about you? What do you have on repeat?
Probably Idol by BTS. I don't know. I played it to my semi K-pop friend, and she didn't really like it. It's one of those things where you hate it or you love it. And for me, I used to hate that song, but now it's like my favorite song by them. It's just, I don't know. It just has that feeling to me. It's like they usually have a really upbeat vibe, and this is like in between their upbeat vibe. For me, it's like in between Dynamite and Fire, and it's just like the right amount of edgy and like upbeat. So
I want to add that I love Idol as well. Like I love that song as well. So props to you, because I also love Idol.
Mom, just an FYI, it's not Pultong, it's Pultong.
She told you. I mean, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll just add, I want to throw in my own, because I think we all know I am a big ATEEZ fan. And I would say Wonderland is a song that if it ever comes up on my playlist, I absolutely never skip it. There's just something about that song that makes me want to hop on a pirate ship and like slash all the baddies and just conquer everything. Like, it really makes me feel like I can do anything. And isn't that like the good thing about music, is that it makes you like, you know what I mean? Feel that you can do something or accomplish something. That's how that song makes me feel. So this is always a fun question. Who is your current ultimate bias, and who is your bias wrecker?
Okay, well, welcome to my TED Talk on my bias. And honestly, first, I feel like this is a harder question for me than it probably has any right to be, because I really do have like super bad love for each of the BTS members, and I think that truly what makes the group just such a delight is that they all feel very integral, and I don't think that there's like any one of them that could be like even remotely replaceable. But that being said, I like hard questions, so my bias is Kim Namjoon, aka RM, aka Rap Monster, which I thought was hilarious. Allison, that this week Megan learned that RM stands for Rap Monster, and it is precious and cute to like come up with like, you know, your idol name when you're like what, 15 or 16.
Yeah, I didn't know, and yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, what you think is cool at 15. I mean, he's like probably, what is he, 28 now or something? He's probably like, oh,
yeah,
God,
I don't think it's probably like the choice you make in your late 20s, but you know, here we are, and it's fine.
It's fine.
But
he's awesome. He's awesome. He
I
can
think
do
that, like, you know, not only is he highly intelligent and articulate, and that's never not going to like ring all my bells, but I really appreciate like a couple of other things that I wanted to just like call out. One is that he has been just a very outspoken supporter of the queer community. And I really love that he does things like amplify queer musicians on social media, like Troye Sivan on the Love Simon soundtrack. You know, I just feel like the fact that he has this like gigantic international platform, and he is willing and excited to use it as a force for self-acceptance and love in all its expressions is just super rad. And I also think that Namjoon is just a really capable leader, and I cannot imagine having to be the leader of any kind of a K-pop group, let alone BTS, which I feel like must carry just an incredible amount of pressure. And he seems to handle himself with such grace. And I feel like, despite that there is this like occasional snark that he has in interviews, and I really appreciate that as well, because like, let's be real, like not only does the bulk of translation work fall to him when he's in English-speaking countries. But he has to keep, like, everyone else in the group in check at events that can be, like, exciting and, like, you know, they might get, like, carried away doing things. And he also has to, like, just field some of the most, like, inane questions from people without looking like he wants to, like, punch himself in the face. So, you know, kudos for that. And I really love how he speaks English. I feel like he speaks English the same way he raps, which is, like, to have, like, lots of swagger. And I also just love that, like, he has, like, another nickname, which is the God of Destruction, because he just breaks everything and anything. And, like, some of my absolute favorite self-care is just to, like, pop onto YouTube and watch videos of Namjoon being a total klutz, and I'm not sorry about that. And, you know, I also just want to say that, like, they got their own personal Instagrams, like, in the last month. And Namjoon has taken, like, his 23+ million followers on this road trip through rural America into, like, you know, some more urban centers, visiting just, like, all these contemporary art galleries, and has probably honestly done more for art education than anything else in recent memory. Like, he's highlighting Mark Rothko, he's highlighting minimalist sculptor Donald Judd, like, it's just, like, I don't know. I just think that, like, that's really cool as well. And that being said, my bias wrecker is my manic pixie boy, Jimin, who I just think looks and sounds like a little cherub angel, but is, like, all sassy. And when he is performing, I swear to God, like, I just always look for where he is, because I feel like he's just really theatrical to watch and very delicate, but also super powerful. And I also just think that out of anyone, 10 out of 10, I'd love to have drinks and gossip with Baby Mochi.
So it's funny you mentioned Jimin, because so I just want to tell you, I saw this photo that was, like, of the back of BTS, but it was, like, middle back down. And it was very funny because the caption was, like, which one's Jimin? And you could tell because all the rest were just standing straight, and Jimin was standing with, like, one hip out, like a totally, like, sassy pose. And it was just hilarious. Like, you could tell just from the back of them, from, like, the waist down, like, who he was. Allison, over to you.
I have to agree with everything Lilia said. It is hard to pick your bias when they are all so incredibly talented and just, like, wonderful to watch and entertaining. But Sugar's my favorite. He's just so talented. Like, every song I love because of the Sugar solo. And, like, I've, you know, just, like, learning the songs that he's produced, I was like, oh, I was listening to that song way before I started listening to BTS. Like, just how talented he is vocally, like, singing as well as rapping. And he just is the old man of the group, and I love that very much about him. Like, there's this video that I watched, and the six of the BTS are just, like, running around playing in the pool. He's in the shade with a glass of red wine, and I'm like, yep, that's why I love you. You will always be my bias because of this. Like,
I can relate.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be over here. You guys have fun. And I just, yeah, that's my favorite thing about him. He just is like, this is me, I'm going to do my thing, but I'm also going to work incredibly hard for this group. And, like, I mean, just watching him dance when he's in it, like, he's so good. My bias wrecker is V. He can sing so incredibly. I'm like, where did he come from? He's an angel. And just, he's so goofy, and there's, like, clips of him just, like, being off in his own world in, like, interviews, and I love his style. I love, like, the visual, not only his visuals, but just, like,
I have to
the way
say
that he presents himself.
It's really hard
to
have to give just those two, but yeah, when it comes to V, I feel as if his vibe, he has more charisma, like, in his little finger than, like, any celebrity has in, like, their whole being. It's just amazing, truly. And I kind of feel like out of all of them, I know he's been in K-drama, but I also feel like, he's the most likely, like, that I would vote. I would just love to see him in more dramas as well, because he's a true performer.
My bias is probably Jimin, because he's really, like, at the performance, he's very his own mood and own personality, and he's just really, I watch videos of him whenever I don't have a K-drama to watch. I'm, like, on YouTube watching him just being, it literally is titled, like, Jimin being his own mood. And it's just, like, it always cracks me up. It's hilarious. And then my bias wrecker, that's really tough because probably RM. My mom had switched around. He's same as he has a lot of pressure on him, and he's like doing really well because he's the leader of the one of the biggest boy groups in the world, and he's just awesome for that because he never he's also his own mood, but in more of a way that he is the literal dad of BTS, and I can totally see him accidentally calling one of the BTS members his son, or one of them actually accidentally calling him dad. I can totally see that, and I'd be I wouldn't notice it because it's so normal because he is really just the father of BTS, and that takes a lot because it's BTS.
Next question. What is joyful about being a fan?
All right. Well, again, I'm just going to only come at these questions through a BTS lens as we're building up to talking about seeing them live. But I feel for me, something that I really find joyful about being a fan is I think that they redefine masculinity, as do many Korean Idol. But I think that BTS has this giant global stage, and their influence is something that I'm just really proud to support. And I love everything from their style choices to their performances to their interpersonal relationships with each other, that they're just totally repudiating that concept of toxic masculinity that really centers suppressing emotions and coming across a hard, tough man, or even can be glorifying or sexualizing violence. And I feel in this repudiation is coupled with the fact that they just have this very relatable, dorkable side. And I think that's a huge part of what is attractive in watching them is I know it sounds cliche, but they just feel very relatable, despite the fact that they probably are the most famous group, I would argue, probably since the Beatles. And that just gives me life. I also love that they're a Korean boy band, and they can come and sell out the largest stadium in America and just speak Korean on the stage and still have this honest, authentic communication with the audience that transcends language and culture and gender and racial barriers. But at the same time, 100% centers all of that as well. And to me, that's just honestly amazing.
Yeah, Allison, what do you think?
I think that just my favorite thing is being around Army. When I was flying to LA, there was just Army in the airport, from the Omaha airport to the LA airport, and suddenly there was just people that I could go up and talk to and have the shared common language, and know that because they were BTS Army, there was that just everybody's welcome here. We're all just a big community that are supporting each other, and so didn't think twice about making conversation with somebody I'd never met before, sitting down and having lunch with somebody at the airport, while we're waiting for the plane, and talking about what it is we do and who we who our bias is, and just everybody was so positive. And I think that is just something special that BTS has brought to the fan base, is just this genuine kindness and respect for each other. I think that brings me a lot of joy about being a fan. And honestly, the other day my best friend was I don't think I've ever heard a BTS song. She's they just got nominated for a Grammy. And I was oh, don't worry, I got you. So I put on and made her listen to it. And then now throughout the day, I'll just be and you need to listen to this one and this one, because they're just so good. The music is so incredible. And it just, music can bring you joy and lift you out of hard times, and, help you sort of feel the feels when you need to as well.
Go ahead, Bronte.
I think they hit all of those notes, really, and they do it so well.
And they just bring a lot of joy to me. After most days at school, just, I don't know, I come home and I'm pooped. And I'd sit back, listen to a BTS song, and I'm I just instantly feel better. And being a kid and being a fan, and they're all I don't know, they're be true to yourself and figure stuff out. I look up to them for that. It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say something similar. One thing that I haven't said this on the podcast, but I mostly follow NCT and ATEEZ. And one thing, but I follow a lot of other groups too. And one thing I just noticed about their music is that a lot of, and I love ITZY. I love ITZY a lot too. They're a girl group, and it's the positive messaging that I think is, and I don't feel like it's like toxic positivity. It's like acknowledgement that life is hard, but then it's also like, times are hard, but you can pull through. And like sometimes we just want that. Like sometimes music, we just want that to be a safety net for us. ATEEZ recently came out with a song called Turbulence, and it like really hit me because it's about, it's really about like struggling and feeling alone. And especially during COVID, it really hit me because it was about, there's like a lyric that says like sometimes it feels like the world is just asking you to fall, and that sometimes we just all want a hug essentially, or an embrace. And it's like, yeah, like just the whole song felt like a hug to me. And sometimes that's just what I want. I want music to make me feel empowered. And I think that that's what makes me feel really joyful about the music, is a lot of it just has messaging that I like. And then sometimes it's just freaking fun to listen to. Like sometimes I just want to, I just want to shake my butt. I mean, and I love that. I love the overall vibe. I think like Bronte said, like sometimes the music is just a mood, and it's fantastic. So what is challenging about being a fan of Korean entertainment?
Allison, do you want to jump in with this one first?
Sure. I think the challenging thing is, just as I'm exploring like Korean culture, just learning more about K-pop idol culture and the challenges they go through to become idols, and learning about just sort of mental health and depression in that particular, realm. There's a lot of idols that have taken their life and, have died by suicide, and just the amount of pressure that they feel, and just knowing the idols are, experiencing that and feeling that as well. I think that's hard because I'm like, oh, you're so talented. Like we see these, beautiful glossy images and presentations of them, but there are, not so great sides of the entertainment industry, and not just in, Korean pop idol industry, but, the entertainment industry across the board. And then just on a very like selfish personal note, that eventually they'll have to disband, and BTS will no longer be, and that's hard because I love their music, and I want to listen to it
We've been
forever.
like talking about the possible military countdown too, and what that means if having these personal Instagram accounts is like a nod towards having to do more differentiation. I think that's definitely when they do this next world tour that's kind of being hyped for 2022. I'm selling a kidney to go to whatever, because I don't know when like at that point I'm nervous when we get to see them again all together. But also what you kind of touched on too, that I do think is really important to kind of acknowledge, is that all celebrity culture is inherently like fairly messed up. But something that I think is kind of a little bit more unique to what I've been seeing with like Korean celebrity culture is this idea of actors and idols needing, as part of like their job description, essentially to project this like perpetually available, sexy yet like weirdly virginal image. And so I'm not saying that like I want to go see like Hobie getting busted for making like, explicit videotapes on a yacht or something, but I really would like to be part of a trend of the fandom normalizing like these like men and women having relationships and experiences that seem really essential to your youth, and when they're in their like physical prime, let's be real. And so, like, I want to be able to let them date without a global catastrophe. And to want otherwise feels like endorsing a really toxic dynamic. And I feel like, three of us here, Bronte not included in this, are like older fans. And I feel like, it's part of our responsibility to model for younger ones healthy ways to like engage in fandom spaces. Because, I do think that that's something, as Korean pop fans like really do spread across ages. And like we really can be like showing younger folks out there that these ideas of like having to be so restrictive and not just being able to like live your life, like that's not it. And I'm going to turn this over to Bronte, too. So, Bronte, what do you feel like is challenging in being a K-pop fan?
I'm the only, well, besides my mom, I don't know anyone else who really is a K-pop fan. And, like, my best friend is a semi-K-pop fan because he likes maybe, like, 3 Stray Kids songs and, like, 1 BTS song. But that's it, and that's all I can talk about, so I end up that's why V-Live was kind of, like, a bit of a savior to me. It just, like, there's other people that you can connect with that, like, actually know what's going on. Because no one else in my school knows what, like, even K-pop is. So that's really hard, because just, like, being in your own world and, like, it's because if no one else knows what you're talking about, and it's really, like, no one else knows what it is, and I'm the only one, and they're all like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? And, like, my friend even, who's a semi-K-pop fan, whenever I talk to her about it too much, because I, like, want to let it all out, she's like, you can stop now. And my mom was, like, the only one I have to talk to in person about K-pop. And, like, I mean, that's, no offense, Mom, that's kind of sad.
Fair. Totally fair. So bonding and yet so troubling to be, you know, coming up into your teens and being like, great, the only person I have to talk about the things I love with is my mom.
I do have to completely agree with what you just said, though, because, like, I try to talk about K-pop with my friends, and they're like, no, we're not having this. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll just talk to my husband, who is so tired of hearing about K-pop right now, because he's the only one around, and he's forced to listen to it 24 hours a day because I'm listening to it.
Every time we go over to my brother's, he always plays music in his basement, and he just kind of plays like usually like a popular hits playlist or whatever. And it's so funny because every time a K-pop song comes on, I like scream it. I'm like, it's a K-pop song, and it's so funny because a lot of times they don't know. And they're like a Monsta X song came on that was totally in English, and so they were like really confused. They were like, but this is in English, and I was like, well, sometimes they sing and they rap in English, and a lot of times it's like a mix of Korean and English. And they were really surprised, but I get really excited. But like, no, none of them actually want to have a conversation with me about it. And yeah, my husband's like over it. Okay, so let's set the stage and kind of get into a little bit about the concert. But first of all, Bronte, you got COVID for your birthday. Why don't you tell us a bit about what that was like and how being a K-pop fan helped you cope with the self-quarantine?
It was really hard because this year was actually like the first time I was gonna have birthday party. Well, I did it once, but I kind of just joined on to my friend's party really quickly, and that was funny. It was still fun, but like I never had a birthday party that's like for me, so this is gonna be my big year. And then I got COVID, which was, like, seriously depressing. And I remember we had just, like, gone outside for cake, and I was, like, pretty bummed, even though it was still my birthday. And I remember I hadn't listened to a K-pop song in a while for I don't know why. And then I was just like, okay. And then I played the BTS song. This is why, like, Idol is my favorite song, because I was playing Idol, and that's when I got to like it. And I'm like, hey, this is really good. Why did I stop listening to this? And then for like the rest of my quarantine, it was just a bunch of BTS, Stray Kids, that's what because at first I had really been like only listening to Stray Kids because I didn't want to be like, I don't know, I just like this was the only group I liked. And then I started listening to a bunch of other groups and I got like really into it, and so my quarantine was really sucky, but it also like helped me become a K-pop fan, because without it I'd like probably be slowly drifting out of it. But I'm glad I didn't. It was still like pretty sad though. I do not recommend it.
Yeah, 10 out of 10 don't recommend COVID for your birthday.
Yeah, you're allowed to be sad about it. Trust me, we all felt really bad. Yeah. So, Allison, tell us about your journey to becoming ARMY.
So I touched on it a little bit. Like, again, I had known who BTS was for a while just because they've been around for a long time, and I listen to music in the world. And I had heard Dynamite, and I was like, I don't really love this song, but it's fine. And then I watched that Carpool Karaoke, and it was like Sugar singing the intro to Black Swan, and then the Jungkook's like solo, and I was like head over heels. I think I texted Leah like in the Instagram. I was like, BTS singing Post Malone Circles will live rent free in my head forever. And that was the moment, just like watching them do what they do. And I was just like hardcore ARMY after that. And then they announced the concerts in LA, and I was like, oh my gosh, like how cool would this be? I sent it to Leah, and she's like, sweet. And then it just like went from there, and suddenly I was ARMY who was flying halfway across the country to go see them live. So it happened in a split second. There was no in between. It was like, yeah, okay, and then all in 100%.
Leah, describe the process of you getting tickets.
So any of the gray hair that you see here is all linked to trying to get BTS tickets. So I felt really bad for Bronte having like birthday COVID, and also it was just a time where I knew I could see vaccinations, like I was vaccinated, I could see kid vaccinations were on the horizon, and I just felt like this was a chance where the timing could theoretically work out and like we could make some magic happen. And so I pre-registered for like the pre-sale. I believe Allison was the one who even put on my radar that like, you know, tickets were going to be going on sale. I like got into like the pre-sale whatever, and I don't know, like these Ticketmaster sales, like I just like got like tried to get twice tickets like the other day where Megan was with me for that experience, and like I was unsuccessful. I got one somehow and then just like sold it at price because I was like, what am I gonna do with one ticket? But somehow like the BTS gods were like kind to me in this moment, and you know, when I got let in, I wasn't crazy back in the queue. Like, I knew I wasn't close, but, like, I was at, like, 600. And I was like, oh, my God, like, I'm actually going to, like, get freaking tickets. And then when you get let in, there's just this moment where I'm like, oh, my God, if everything crashes, I don't know what to do. There's another moment where you just see seats getting freaking taken en masse. And I was just in like a blind panic, and I literally just like clicked my button on something, and it was, you know, this ticket's been taken. I did it again. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting agitated. I don't know what to do. And then like did it again, third time. Like I didn't even know where I was clicking at that point. I was just like on the screen like, ah! And all of a sudden I was like, yeah, you've got tickets. And yeah, it was really, really exciting. And I felt as close as I'm ever going to feel to like opening up a bar of Wonka chocolate and finding a golden ticket inside.
I love that analogy. That's awesome. Okay, so for those of you, which is everyone but me, who attended the BTS concert, what was it like traveling to the show, you know, getting into the stadium, all of that?
I was a little bit nervous because I was flying from Omaha to LA, and I was like, I don't know, lots of flights are getting canceled, but everything worked out really well. So, like, the flight was smooth and, like, landed in LA amongst a whole bunch of ARMY. So you're, like, instantly like, okay, these people are also going to the same place I'm going to eventually. So you just kind of felt that everything would work out because there were several hundred people also at the airport who were going to the BTS show. So it was just from landing in LA, this sense of things will work out. We'll all get there. It'll be great. And Leah had put on my radar the Rally Rideshare, which is, I don't even know what to call it, but just a web-based, like you can tell them where your hotel is and then sign up for a bus, and you get on the bus like right at the door of your hotel. They take you to the event. They wait there for you, and then you hop on the same bus, and then they drop you off at the hotel again after the show. And that was so smooth and easy, worked out perfect. The only thing I had not anticipated was, simply because it had been so long since I traveled, how motion sick I get. Like, I had just forgotten about that part of me because I haven't traveled because of COVID. So I was literally motion sick from the moment I got like on the plane in Omaha until I got back to Omaha. Like, LA and I did not agree with each other in terms of like motion sickness. So I was miserable 99% of the time, except for when I was at the concert. And Oh, it was terrible, but it was fine because,
Right.
you know, you get Dramamine at the airport when you're headed back and it was all good. I do have like BTS can cure all story. So like we're on the rally rideshare. There's like, you know, 30 of us like all excited to go to BTS, and we're just talking about like our favorite songs and our favorite members. And then one of the women was, well, let's listen to the music. And like I was to the point where I was like, I'm going to get sick. Like I was so sick. And as soon as they put BTS on, like my motion sickness went away. I was completely fine. So I was like, okay, I love BTS even more now because suddenly I feel better. Yeah. Yeah. And then once we got to SoFi, like, and that was my other favorite part because we were all on the bus going to the same place. They were like sharing tips and tricks because Army will go to all of the shows. So most, like, I think everybody in the bus except for me was going to, if not all 4 shows, at least 2 or more. And so they had like, you know, on the bus, one of the ladies that was behind me was like, if you see somebody with a vaccination wristband, like make sure to get that right away so it's really smooth to get in. So I was like, okay, cool. So I was like walking to my entrance at SoFi, and some guy was like, I have 3 bracelets left. So I like pulled out my vaccination card and my ID and got that taken care of, got to my line, and like just had everything. And, you know, you're in line for hours and you're making friends with people. Like Army are just the nicest group of people. And so we're just having conversation, and then we're just waiting in line. Our entrance went really smooth. Like I know that there were other entrances that did not have as much luck, but it was just like, oh, you have a vaccination wristband? Okay, you can now go into this line, and now you're in the concert. So
yeah, for us,
it went really well.
What, like, was the beginning of fun was getting to the San Jose airport and just starting to see like the bits of purple like here and there, or bits of like the different little animals, or, you know, a t-shirt. And so it's just like little one-offs. And then you get off in LA, and all of a sudden it just turned into like this, like what was like a little like trickle of purple turned into like literally like a freaking, because I arrived on concert day, like the concert day for day 3. It was a river of purple and Army, and it just felt really fun, and that camaraderie was really cool. I will say that like I'm very glad we did book like a bus to the show. Our bus was a little less smooth in that I'm not sure if our driver had ever driven a bus before, and so we were doing things like bottoming out, like like it was like a wild Mr. Toad's wild ride, and I'm like a fairly laid back person, and I wasn't nervous, but I was also like, I'm not sure what's happening right now. Like we bottomed out a few times to where like he was like going over curbs and then having to stop the bus and get out and look underneath to like see if the bus was still there. He at one point pulled like a U-turn in traffic in like a giant bus with like no warning. And so that was all kind of like fun and crazy. But what I will say was also really cool being on the bus was like the range of people. Like we had Bronte, who is like quite young. You know, there was like a smattering of kind of like 20 something, you know, whatever. And then like, you know, there was like a few ladies on the bus who were like, you know, well into probably like their late 50s and 60s, some in concert wear, some just looking like they were honestly like about to go to church, like in like a little like collared shirt and like a cardigan, like ready to go. And I felt like that was really like awesome. It was just like every type of person was on that bus. And I really appreciated it. And then when we got to SoFi, which is, look, like this stadium cost like a couple $1 billion, which I still can't get my head around. $1 billion stadium. And we got there, and I was feeling pretty good. Okay, I'd love to like connect with Allison before the show. Like we've got our tickets. We're there at like 4:00. The show doesn't start till 7:30. No big deal. We're gonna skip the merch lines. The other thing that blew my mind was like these merch lines outside the stadium. Folks were lining up at like 3 a.m. to like start getting in line for merch stuff, which blew my mind. But anyway, I was like, okay, none of that, thank you. Like, we're just going to get to the stadium. And so our side, I would say all hell broke loose. I have no idea. I felt like I was like, I now have, and I'm not even like trying to be like hyperbolic. I feel like I understand what happens in like mass panic situations where there's like people trying to like get food or like services, because we were in lines that went no, like, I can't even tell you, like, we were in lines for like 2.5 hours that like kept not becoming lines, and people were panicking and running at one point. And, you know, the concert that had happened in Texas that had like turned into quite a tragedy with like stampede, like, we never got dangerous, but I was like, I can see how shit gets crazy, and all I can do is like hold my kid's hand, and we are going to get into the show somehow. We have tickets. And then like sound check happened, and that's when Bronte lost her everlasting mind. Was she was like, oh my God, the show has started. We have missed everything. I was like, honey, no, this is like sound check. It's all good. Just enjoy listening to them. Like, we are fine. It's all fine. But by like 6 something, I was like, are we gonna like really get in? I'm not quite sure anymore. And I couldn't like call Allison because the phones were all jammed. Like, I couldn't get signals anymore. And I was just like, you know, I'm pretty sure it's fine. And I'm going to model calmness, because Bronte was basically like tears just trickling down her sad little face into her mask. And I was like, this is fine. It's fine. And then I don't know what happened, but I heard somebody just like bitching who worked for SoFi being, I don't know why all these people are standing over here when if they just walk around the corner, there's no line. And I was, And so I was like, Bronte, let's just like start walking. And we like went around the corner of the stadium, and we went from, I don't even know, like all hell broke loose to no lines whatsoever. We just washed out our things, walked in, got to our seats with zero drama. I have no idea. It was just like, I will say, like, wagging the finger to SoFi for having no idea. And we were on day 3 at that point, that I was like, look, I know crowd control. I can't imagine like logistics. But it also felt like it could have been like potentially slightly dangerous. And if anything had gone wrong, or if there was like anyone with like nefarious purposes or anything, like it could have just been like a real shit show. However, it was not. We got to our seats, super awesome. And we were seated next to the president of BTS, like the UK BTS fan club. So she was really sweet, and like gave Bronte a light stick because we didn't have one, because like we're still kind of like figuring it all out. So anyway, the setup to get in, like once we got in, it's like having like childbirth. Like it was like, I felt like there was some real pain and suffering for a couple of hours. And then once I got in, I'm like, it's all good. This is going to be nothing but fun. And Bronte, I don't know if you want to speak at all to like the extreme panic attack you had about not being sure if you could get into the show.
Mm-hmm. So the lines were like, I had been to 2 concerts before, and they weren't, like, I thought that was bad. Because I went to, like, some random Kpop concert for my birthday a couple years ago, and, yeah, because my mom heard me listening to a song from them, so she was like, oh, let's go for your birthday. So I did, and, like, the line was, like, I thought it was long to get in, and I'm like, hey, and then on the bus, I'm like, hey, Mom, will the line be, like, Kpop? And she's like, no. And then I got, like, I was kind of worried on the bus, because after hearing that, and then we got in, and I saw the lines for the merch, and I'm like, holy cow, those are the lines. And my mom's like, no. And I'm like, okay. And then she said, those are the lines. And I saw these lines that look like a line that's as long as a marathon. And I'm like, is this worth it? And my brother was like, yes, you're doing this. So we were in line, and sound check started. And, like, I had heard people saying, like, we're not going to get in. Let's, like, start a rampage. And I'm like, what is going on? And then the sound check started. And I'm like, they're starting it early. Everything, life has no more meaning. And, like, I started, so at first I went from freaking out, being like, let's break in. And then I went to, like, life has no meaning. There's no purpose on earth. Why are we here? And, my mom at one point just was like, you better snap out of it or we're going back. And I'm like, okay.
I was really sympathetic at one point.
Yeah. And we were in a line, and I'm like, Mom, I can see, like, this line, this is the line for, like, food or something. The line for the, like, we're going in the wrong direction. And we were at the front. Like, people just started walking away. It was nothing. There was no purpose. And I remember at one point, we were, like, by the bathrooms. We were, like, solidly close to getting in, and then this is when we heard the people saying there were no lines, like, and my mom was like, let's just go over there. And I'm like, Mom, we have a good spot over here. So we left, and then 5 seconds after we had left that line, everyone else was just like bolting in random directions, and there was not a line anymore. And I'm like, what is going on?
This whole podcast is going to be about the line of SoFi Stadium. That could be a podcast in and of itself of human nature.
So, and then at one point, this is like before we actually got in, Mom was like, we're getting food, you need to eat. And I'm like, I don't have any money. I do, but like I'm not going to spend $20 on overpriced pizza.
I wasn't going to make you pay for it.
And she's like, here's $20, buy a pizza. But if you hear me screaming your name, you better come back. And I'm like, yeah, ma'am, yes, ma'am. So I grabbed the thing and like ran to some random pizza place. And she was like, Bronte! And I just got in line. And she had like moved 3 inches like, oh good, just wanted to make sure you're safe. And I'm like, you can see me. And then when we were actually getting like close to getting in, I thought they were gonna like have to, I don't know, make us take like, I thought we were like the metal detector, like we were gonna to like an airport metal detector, we had to go through like that whole security thing. And I'm like, Mom, we're not gonna get in, it's already 7:00. And then when we got in, I'm vegetarian, so it was really, my mom was like, she was like, don't worry, there's going to be lots of vegetarian food there. I mean, like, LA's like the capital of, vegetarianness. And I'm like, okay. We went in, like, the only place that, like, there was a place near our seats. And I'm like, oh, this is, like, really lucky. We got in line, looked at the menu. It was just, like, burgers, hot dogs, chili hot dog burger. And I'm like, so I ended up having a bag of Lay's chips and...
This is your story.
And Sprite for dinner. And I'm like, I wasn't mad at that. I mean, I like chips. So yeah, that's a plus.
Let's wrap it up.
But it was like it was the best and worst night of my life.
Bronte learned a lot of lessons about
personal
stress management.
It was like,
Yeah. All right. Moving on from the lays and the lines.
Overall, what was the experience like? What were some highs and lows from the concert? Tell us what you loved about it. What was the experience like? All that good stuff. Allison, I guess you can start.
I think just being there, that was watching them do what they do best. Like, I cannot stress that enough. They are truly masters of their craft. Like, at one point, J-Hope, like Leah said, like, they connected with the audience like several times. They would come out and they would talk to us, each of them individually. And J-Hope is, this is my job. My job is to make you happy. My job is to make sure you're having a good experience. And if you like leave here and you've had a good experience and you're happy, I can say I did my job well. And like, he did his job perfectly. And all of them did. They are just so talented. So that was a high. And this is the biggest band in the world. And to be able to say that I was lucky enough to see them is pretty incredible. That's pretty amazing. I love live music, and seeing a show of this like scale was pretty incredible. My low was, it was so cold. It was like so cold. So it was just like shivering. Even once we like, because I was up in like the very top section, and so like closest to like where the breeze was coming in and out, and it was like 50 degrees that night. It was not warm. I was just chilly. That was the only negative thing about the show itself.
I live in Pennsylvania. 50's great. I'd be like, 50 degrees? That sounds great.
Yeah, no.
No, I'm not.
I'm from Nebraska.
I'm just teasing.
It was like a wet fog. It was not what I thought it was going to be a lot.
Yeah, I was just like, I figured it. That's why you were like, it's cold. I'm like, what? You're in LA. I was confused. Okay.
Apparently the first night was super, super hot, and then like each show after like got cooler. So we just
and if you're up high too, it's going to be a little bit damper and cooler.
Yeah.
I think that for me, I had pretty reasonable expectations, I think. I mean, obviously, like, I was like, these are people who know what they're doing. And I was kind of seen in, like, an interview recently where V had been like, I feel like we've been living as entertainers, but we're actually performers. And I thought that was, like, a very good self-awareness of, for the last couple of years, they've been amazing at putting out content. However, they're performers. And so I was kind of interested to see like what that was going to be like unleashed, because they had such like a short window, like 4 days. And I can't even imagine what it would be like to feed off of that energy, because I've seen like different, like I've seen everywhere from 50,000 to 70,000 basically a night. So like, let's say like at least over 60,000 probably, to just be like on the receiving end of like that much energy too. And I will talk about this until I'm on my deathbed, of like the fact that they could make that kind of an experience feel intimate is like beyond anything. Like that was not what I was expecting. I think I was expecting like showmanship. I was expecting the lights. I was expecting like the spectacle, but the fact that it felt really personal, and so much of it has to do with like their vulnerability, the fact that like they're authentically connecting with each other on the stage, and then they've got like the big screens kind of reflecting that. And I mean, like, I don't know, like they're just good people being good people. I mean, like, it's just like, I was like, are we just that starved for this in like humanity that it just feels like that? But yeah, I don't know. So everything, I enjoyed everything from like, there were times where they would get out, they got on these little carts and it like took them around the stadium, and so they could like move around. And I thought that was really sweet and special, because like it just like brought them around physically, because people just cannot get enough, clearly. But also I felt like there was just like this earnestness, especially at the end when they all kind of had time to talk. And RM, I swear to God, like he like could be like an evangelical preacher in another life. Like he just like was in his feelings, and the way he was talking, he like made you feel how much he was like caring to be there and how much he wanted to do well. And then the fact that so many of the other, like I would say like probably most of them ended up speaking in Korean for like those parts where they really wanted to like have authentic feelings, and then they got translated. And I thought that was a really special, smart thing to do as well too, because honestly, I feel like it was their time too. Like it was our time, but I feel like it was also their time. And I was really happy that they got to have that. And just a huge shout out that like V came out with like the Squid Game uniform of like, you know, being the soldier. And that was just like super fun and sweet. So yeah, I just think that it was exactly the spectacle I thought it would be, but I really wasn't expecting to just feel like that hyper level of like connection and warmth. Really just felt like the best of humanity all coming together. And when I left, it was like this buzz of just goodness. And I can't put that into like actual words, because it's a feeling.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that they say like they're performers, because I do think K-pop, the whole industry, definitely like that's what they're about, because they put a lot of emphasis on like facial expressions on stage, and like exaggerated facial expressions, because when you're it meant to be performed in front of a live audience. You know, I don't think we get a lot in like some other type of music industries. So I do think that that's interesting he said that, and everything that I see in K-pop backs that up.
The amount of caloric expenditure that had to have happened in that show was staggering to me, because I was trying to think like just in like the first song, like by the end of that, I'm like, that was easily like 1,500 calories right there, plus singing. And apparently like normally, because obviously I haven't seen BTS before, it's pretty common for them to spell each other off. So some people are on stage doing something, and they're taking breaks throughout the show to like try to basically like have a chance to like rest. And they did take some,
like eat a Cliff Bar,
right, like have some water. So they did do some like costume changes and some short intermissions, because like dear God. But like they've spent when they were performing, they were all together, and I cannot, like, I mean, I feel like I had to have watched them burn like literally like 25,000 calories or something. Like it was inhuman, the amount of energy and like strength they brought into like the length of the concert, because the concert was like almost 3 hours long, and like they were just like highly physical the entire time, and that blew my mind as well. Bronte, do you have anything to say about the experience of being at the show? You can talk about the first was the bit of the... So I had no low either. I'm just going to say, like, once it started, there was no low for me. It was just magic.
I wouldn't say I almost died, but, like, I could have been seriously injured. So we were in, like, our seats, there was an overhang above us, like the last overhang, and someone had brought a portable phone charger, and it fell, and it passed my ear. I could hear it, and I'm like, what was that? And like scraped my elbow, fell on the floor, and the lady next to me is like the UK president, like that lady. The shout outs to her if she's listening. But like she was like, oh my God, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. What was that? And I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a phone, and I thought it was a phone, and I thought I had just broke like $1,000 worth of a phone. I don't know. I was like overreacting, and then a bunch of people were like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, is the phone okay?" And I picked it up, and I'm like, "Oh, wait, it's like a $20 charger," and like the guy was looking over, and he was like looking down, and he was like, "Uh-oh." I could see he's just like, I didn't do that.
So what were the highlights besides almost getting hit in the head?
It was like really magic. It was like the best night of my life so far, besides being born. Because that would be pretty sad if that wasn't my favorite thing. Anyway, it was like really magical. They just had this feeling about them, and like the intermissions, like they all got an equal part, and it was just like when they came around on the carts, that was really cool. And they did the wave, like the feeling, I can't even begin to describe the feeling of when the wave is coming to you, and there's like that brief moment where you can like see it coming to you. It's really pretty, because it's just like, woo.
And the glow sticks?
Yeah, the glow sticks. It's like, it's beautiful. It's like, it was like the best feeling I've, like, ever.
How about when Namjoon got upset or not upset, but tried to manage a more difficult wave and no one could pull it off, remember?
Yeah, at the end he's like, all right, you guys, you ready for the best wave that's ever happened in the history of BTS waves? And it started, and everybody was just like, at once, woo, woo. And it was like really slow.
That was
like,
pretty hilarious.
Okay, we could do better. And it took like 4 turns to get it right. And he was like, yeah, okay, there we go. You tried your best, yeah. Woo. And when they left, it was like, that was really funny. And when they first came on stage, that was also a really cool feeling, because they're like, I was like, is that dumb? Is that dumb? She's like, yeah, that's dumb. And I'm like, I'm in this state, I'm breathing the same air as BTS right now. Yeah. And so it was, yeah, it was just really fun, really magical.
Allison, as a therapist, can you share some key points between like a healthy fan and an unhealthy obsession? And I just want to add, I don't think I'm like giving away any like patient thing, but I did have a friend I know on Instagram. She's like an old, like, she's like she's not old. I'm sorry. I have a reader friend on Instagram, and she messaged me the other day and was like, oh, my therapist is like a really huge fan of your podcast. And I was like, no way, like the, Small Worlds or whatever. And then I was like, and she's like, I think she's a Patreon too. And I was like, well, then I probably know her. And I was like, do you mind telling me her first name? And she's like, it's Allison. I was like, oh, I know Allison. It was just so funny. It's like, what a small world, because like, you know what I mean? She's like a reader. It was just it's just a funny moment. But anyway, sorry, back to the question.
Yeah, it is such a small world. All of my clients, like, we talk about BTS all the time.
That's amazing.
I'm like, you should probably listen to this song, because music can help you get through a lot. Yeah. I thought this was a really interesting question. And like, I had been thinking about it for a while, because I think for me, sort of the way that I understand it, or the way that I kind of think about healthy versus unhealthy, like fangirling or fandom, is just recognizing that this is what they do for a living. It's not all that they are. Like, they are allowed their own private life. And I think like a fangirl is like, I'm here for this community, and I love that these, they're speaking out about mental health and LGBTQ, population, and like, this is why I'm behind them and why I support them, and like the community that they have created. I think that is really healthy, like finding that sense of connection and community. And I think that they have done a really amazing job of nurturing that relationship between themselves and the Army. And that takes vulnerability, and it takes like showing Army like, this is us, on In the Soup, eating and playing silly games for a week, like their whole life is videoed and analyzed. And I think that when you sort of like tip into the analyzing and you start like using them almost as like emotional like bypass, and like, I'm not going to sort of experience my own life, I'm going to immerse myself in this life, that is like the tipping over to unhealthy for me. And I just like, I think about that all the time. Like, they are men who get to have their own life, but like how hard that would be to sort of find that balance of, I'm sharing these experiences, I'm connecting with Army, but I also want this piece to just be me. So that's just a side thought that I think about all the time. And just that unhealthy, like, in not necessarily entitlement, but like not being able to separate like what should be theirs and what is not okay to sort of encroach on or step on in terms of like right to their life and information about their life. Like, stories about fans trying to break into hotels or houses, like that's unhealthy boundaries for me. So those are just my first thoughts
I think
about
that's
it.
Really fair. What gets me, I think, is sometimes just seeing like them getting off planes and being mobbed, because like, I don't care if you're flying first class and get the fancy pajamas. Long haul flights are long haul flights, and like sometimes
land at
you
the
just
airport.
Wanna, like, go like Megan's like the look on Megan's face, like you just want to go home. Like, I don't want people like taking pictures of, you know what I mean? So yeah, sometimes I feel like that too, of even like in that case where it's like, let alone just breaking into someone's house, like just let people like freaking travel.
It's funny you say that, because we went to the show December 1st, and then they had this like the fourth one on December 2nd, and then like I was up in Omaha with my family on December 5th for my niece's birthday, and I just like checked Instagram, and like my Instagram feed was like 100%, these three BTS members have landed safely in Korea and now they're quarantined. I'm like, that was 10 seconds ago, and this is everywhere. I was like, do they ever get a chance to breathe like on their own without somebody watching?
Right. I know. I saw that thing where they came out and they're like, they're going to take a rest. And I was like, you're announcing it? Like, just let them take a rest. Like, oh, yeah, of course they're going to take a rest. Like, it's crazy. They're going to take just a few months. I was like, take like a year.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay.
Yeah, just that like immediacy. Like, I don't, like, it's okay. They can go on vacation. They don't need to notify me. Like, it'll be all right.
Yeah, I think that's when, because normally it's like all noise to me. Like, I've heard that stuff happening in the past, not so much with COVID, obviously, but like, I'm aware of some of that chatter. But I think having, just been at the show, and then social media blew up for like a solid like few hours with the fact that they were like back in Korea. It was, like they're starting their like whatever, like they're going home. Like, let them just go home. Christ. But their rest,
Totally agree.
Like, I will also say, I have I'm not complaining, and yet I also kind of like feel bad that like, look, they're choosing apparently to do this during their rest, but I'm not sure how much sometimes it's a choice or not. But there's still quite a lot. Like, if this is rest content, I don't know. That's why I give like some props to Baby Mochi for not posting shit on Instagram. Like, if he doesn't want to, like, look, if people want to and it's sparking joy, like, you can tell that some of them like it, and I get it. Like, I understand like wanting to like put out content and having fun with it, and like that's making you happy. If that's the case, then like, you know what, you do any of those things that are making you happy. But if you feel like at all compelled to have to do it because like someone's telling you need to do it, like at this point, like I just want to be like, you're BTS. You don't have to do shit. Like, you know, if you want to, you do it. If you don't, you don't.
It is fun to see their personalities on their individual Instagrams. Like, you know, Suga and Jimin aren't posting at all. And then the rest of them, like J-Hope has these like beautiful Polaroids and then pictures, and I'm like, I'm here for all of it. Thanks, guys.
Takes awful. It is suck, and I'm like, of course you did. But also, like, I'm not kidding. Like the art tour, really, I think, like, I don't know how. I mean, if you've got like 22 million, 3 million fans in like the first week of having Instagram, 2 weeks of having Instagram, a good percentage of that are going to now check out the art that you just like shared about. That might be like sparking more joy and creativity for other people. And like, I have to give props to that too. And I also am going to give just selfish eye candy props to the fact that V is growing facial hair and enjoying sharing that with us. And if that's sparking joy for him, it is sparking joy for me, because he's got a little mustache and a little chin hair, and it's fine. So, Megan, I know that we've talked a lot about seeing BTS and like how that meant a lot to us. So, you know, and I also understand that like you don't identify at all as ARMY, and I don't think you're anti-BTS, but like it's just not your thing. And that's fine. However, you are very much like into ATs, and you have decided to bite the bullet and see them live after like some hemming and hawing on if that was going to be like something that you should do. So I think I just want to like close it out by giving you a chance to talk about, we just got to have this experience, our bucket's filled, and we're just like really excited for you to get to have this for yourself. So just talking a little bit about what got you excited to go, and like, you know, what you're hoping to get out of it.
Yeah, so, and like I said, I love BTS. I just don't identify as ARMY. I don't think I deserve it, especially because I don't know as much about their music. I actually started, the first group I started like really heavy standing was NCT. When I saw Lee Taeyong, that was like life-changing. Like he's the leader of NCT, which is like a 23-member group, so he's incredible. And then I was watching NCT at the Mama Awards in 2019, and this group came on, and the set was like kind of dark, and I really liked the song. And at the very end, they kind of had this closing shot on one member, and I was just immediately I was like, who is this band? Who is that man? Like, I just, you know, I think everyone always talks about like the first member that really caught their eye, and for me it was Hongjoon, and they call him the captain, not the leader, because ATEEZ kind of has like a little bit of a pirate concept, and he produces a lot of their songs, and he's one of the main rappers. But anyway, he was the first one that caught my attention, and that's when I was like, I need to learn more about this group. And you mentioned like some of RM's like activism, and Hongjoon is similar, so he like participates in the Polished Man campaign, which means he always has like one of his nails painted, which is to speak out against violence against children. And he's also been like a really big LGBTQ advocate and really accepting of all his fans, and so I really love him. And once I started listening to ATEEZ, I realized how much I love their music. Because I was talking to Leah, they have like essentially their own producer team, like in-house. So kind of if you love one of their songs, you kind of love them all, because they're very, you know, they're produced similarly. And I just love them. I love their message. A lot of their songs are just super inspiring to me. And I watch like all their content. It's crazy how much content they've put out. And so I did not plan on attending the concert, and it was kind of like, I was like, I don't know. I almost felt like guilty, like taking the time to go. I don't know. It was like a weird
And tickets
feeling.
aren't cheap.
And,
let's just say tickets aren't cheap.
Well, yeah, and this is the thing. So the thing about ATEEZ, this concert that they're doing, is that, so they were supposed to have a world tour in 2020, so obviously it was canceled. And so everyone that had tickets to those shows were obviously given, like, their tickets essentially just carried over, which is great. Like, I'm glad. But that means the tickets were even more limited because those people already had tickets. And I heard it was like a mess. Like, everything sold out. And so I didn't even try. And I mean, I was bummed. Like, I was like, okay, well, I'll just like look at the concert content, but I was still a little bummed about it. And then Leah went to BTS and was like, this was like a life-changing experience. Like, this was so worth it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And, you know, I still kind of felt like I had to justify it, which is sort of sad. But so I decided I would take my daughter. She listens to K-pop with me. She's a little bit younger than Bronte. She's 8. And I have a friend who lives in Philly. So the concert's in New Jersey. And so I have a friend that lives in Philly who I just found out was an A-teenie. That's their fandom name, you know, like Army, we're the A-teenie. And so she was like, yeah, I'll go if you get tickets. And I was like, okay, like they're like, I can buy resale tickets, but they are going to be a stupid amount. And I'm not telling you how much I spent on these tickets. I'm just not doing it. But I managed to get tickets off a SeatGeek. And the thing about this concert too is it's an arena tour. So it's not a massive stadium. And part of me too was like, I want to go see them before they're like selling out massive stadiums. When you know you're going to be sitting farther away. So this is at the Prudential Center in New Jersey. So no tickets, I would say, are like terrible because again, it's all it's a smaller venue. But you know, I ordered the light stick and I got it in the mail the other day, and just like holding it, I never thought I would be that excited. Do you know what I mean? And it kind of feels good to just be unapologetically excited about something that makes me feel good. Does that make sense? Like, you know, it's something that I consider to be a positive influence. It puts me in a good mood, and I'm like, you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with just being super excited about it. And so I am. So that's how I came about it. You know, I want to thank Leah for encouraging me, because she was definitely like, look, I think you should do it.
You're going to look back and be like, I wish I had gotten those stupid tickets. So just get them.
She's like, you're not going to regret going. Like, you are going to have a good time. And I do, and I know my daughter will have a good time. And it's not very far. I can take a train. So that's another great thing. I'll have to fly. And so thank you to ATs for coming to New Jersey.
Here's the promise I make for you,
you know?
is that after this happens, we will record again and let you get a chance to just like share the magic and like the high. No, for real, because it was fun tonight to like
it's okay.
see Allison again, especially, and like Bronte said, like in our real lives, we don't have anyone else to talk to about loving BTS except each other in our real life.
We got V Life.
Yeah, Bronte has V Life. I don't even like do that. I just kind of like sit in my feels or whatever and talk on Instagram with Allison.
Yeah, I do the same thing. Or I just kind of like post on, or sometimes I comment on like videos, but then I feel sometimes I'm like, I don't like who's reading my YouTube comments, but but no, I totally get it. And so yeah, we can. But I loved listening to, like, it makes me happy to hear, like, I loved listening to you guys talk about the BTS concert, because it makes me happy that you did something that makes you happy. Like, isn't that what we all want for each other? Like, especially the last like 2 years, like if there's something that brings you joy, like,
so
just
Bronte has been aware that you do K-pop Rec of the Week, and you have never chosen BTS for a K-pop Rec of the Week.
I'm gonna recommend BTS.
I know, but I want good. I want her to do one.
Is probably Life Goes On by BTS, because it's like it is about life during COVID, and it's just such a heartfelt song. It's a good listen. It's a chill song.
And now, forevermore, BTS will finally be on the Afternoona music recommendation list at long last. Thank you, Bronte.
I know. I am so sorry to all the ARMY that I haven't recommended one yet. I know that I should have, but I'm really glad that the first one is put on by Bronte. It's only fair and right.
Honestly,
that a proper ARMY
really
recommended
tonight
it.
To have Allison here and to have Bronte here and just have it be, some time to just see, like, you know, doesn't matter your age. It unites us all together, and that's just really special.
I agree. Yeah, thank you so much, Allison, for coming. Thank you, Bronte. It was so much fun.
Goodbye with us.
Yeah, so you know what we say at the end, so Till next time, annyeong.
감사합니다. Thank you for listening to Afternoona Delight. Make sure to subscribe for more great K-romance conversation. And be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Afternoona Delight Podcast for more information on our podcast, behind-the-scenes photos, and, of course, pics of our favorite oppas and anis. Annyeong!